We look at the white steel sword from The Witcher.
This is the Kitsune clan, a group of sword enthusiasts who like cosplay, reenactment, and historical martial arts. If you have similar interests, feel welcomed.
We have already looked at 4 different blade weapons from The Witcher, and all of them were quite satisfying in the sense of we could make some use of them. Today I want to look at another one, the white steel sword, and as this one is a bit different from the other ones, I simply throw in some more other simple types of swords that we have in EVA foam, just to give you an overview what the market has to offer. So, the white steel sword, it looks like a normal sword, and that breaks down basically the entire story of this thing. It's a rather normal sword. The pommel is a bit small, that could be larger, that would make it a bit more balanced, but the overall construction is simple, it's straightforward, and it works. The handle is what a lot of people like to call a bastard sword handle, so this 1.5 hand. It's mostly made for being held with a single hand, but you can fit a second hand on the pommel, and then you have all the possibilities that a normal German longsword, yeah, there's this discussion, bastard swords are also longswords, la 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 la, can offer, and you can use that perfectly. So, what do we want to talk about here? Yeah, I thought we can use this again to talk about the one big problem that I still see with the acceptance of HEMA and training certain HEMA aspects, and why I think that foam swords are underrated, and why I promote here using foam swords also for people interested in HEMA. Yeah, I can see on the videos that I specifically did on showing that there are foam swords that you could for HEMA. They're not performing well, so not a lot of people are interested in that aspect. Why am I interested in that? So first up, I think historical European martial arts is a thing that is still too far in a niche condition that should interest more people, and it should interact with many more different fields. There are some historians that have shown a deeper interest in that in the recent years, but I still have the feeling that a lot of academia is avoiding this very field. Then all the fantasy people are somehow still avoiding that. They try to separate from that. A lot of the reenactment scene is still not deeply into that. They are more into Buhurt and not necessarily HEMA. And then also the entire cosplayer scene is still avoiding this, and I think they can offer stuff to learn from each other, and therefore I think the dialogue needs to be improved quite a bit. Why do I think that using foam swords is interesting for training historical European martial arts? With the foam swords you can do some stuff that you usually don't do with your steel weapons, and also not to that degree with your polypropylene props that you can use. For example, when it comes to disarming, the foam swords offer something really interesting. I had short discussions with some people on YouTube that disarms are not so super present in a lot of HEMA clubs because in the tournaments there is no focus on them. But we know historically this has played a major role. A lot of the Fechtbücher show very sophisticated types of disarms, and comparing European historical martial arts to other weapon-based fighting styles like Filipino martial arts, we can see that also there disarms play a major role. Why? Disarming gives a lot of control in the situation, and this is simply a different goal than striking a point at a tournament, but I think disarming should be something that people that do HEMA should be able to do and should be able to demonstrate. And here come in the rubber weapons, because we can do something with these rubber or foam weapons that we cannot so easily do with the other stuff. We can disarm at a bit more speed. You can see that in some of our videos when the weapons are quite high flying. That is nothing I would dare with a polypropylene weapon, and definitely not with a steel weapon. Most steel weapons I disarm very carefully, and usually try to disarm in a way that I can keep the weapon. This is of course always something that you prefer, but in some situations it's interesting to really shoot away the weapon that your opponent has, and therefore it can be interesting to really train disarming in a way that the disarmed weapon does a certain trajectory. And that is definitely something you can do with the foam/rubber type weapons that you cannot easily do with something else. Of course, the disarming behaves also a bit different because the rubber EVA weapons, they have a certain give. So you cannot disarm in the same short way that it's possible with steel. On the other hand, that helps also disarming because disarming in this aspect is a bit more challenging due to the give. You have to over exaggerate some of the movements a bit, and that also leads in the end to the interesting trajectories that we can see. You can now of course always argue, why do I need all that fancy disarming? You can always cut for the hand or whatever. As pointed out, it seems to have been an historical thing. It seems to be present in other weapon oriented martial arts, and I really think that it's a major point, a central thing to historical European martial arts. The other aspect that in my view are very, very strong with foam weapons, I have already talked about in several instances in other videos. I think for the acceptance of the community, the foam weapons offer something because you cannot train everywhere with steel and polypropylene and full protection, and the foam weapons can be used right there where you can usually not bring other weapons. Also, if you think about fairs and stuff like that, there are of course Renaissance and medieval fairs where you can bring your steel weapons. But if you have, for example, historical festivals in cities, that's not always possible, and especially in these times, the laws concerning carrying weapons have become stricter, at least in some areas of the world. And therefore, we should be really, really thankful that we still have the option to have an alternative. And the foam weapons definitely are an alternative because the market has become so much bigger and has offered now so many different types of forms that everybody can find something that he or she likes and can carry along if it's not possible to carry around a real steel thing. So although you might consider foam weapons as less cool than your beloved steel weapons, they have something to offer. And I will still continue, although some of the numbers are still very low concerning the viewers, I will still continue to show you what is there on the market and how you can use it and how you can make use for your training with these weapons. In this video here, we could see that also in The Witcher, we have some very normal swords, although the first 4 videos of these ones are linked in the description box. We could see that they are very, very special. No, a lot of these swords are rather normal, and there should be no surprise about that because they are still swords and they're medieval inspired swords, and of course some of them need to be more simple. But there are also a lot of other franchises out there that will offer simple type medieval swords, and I'm sure whatever you're searching for, there is a chance that you can find one to your liking that will fulfill all your desires and your needs. Hope this gave you some ideas, and I hope this gave you some inspiration. And finally, I hope to see you around next time.